because it's like 7 p.m. here, I've got mint tea with no caffeine in it. But obviously, because I'm British, it's funny, isn't it? It's I remember in LA, if you say like tea, and then you have to say English breakfast tea, and then they ask you if you want milk or not. But of course, you always have milk. Here, it's not even a question. But I think in LA, having milk and tea is quite weird. And actually, if you think about it, it's quite weird.
So because this is part of the BAFTA New Talent Program, I wanted to ask you, did you have any mentors in the early stages of your career? And then what single piece of advice do you wish you'd received, when you were starting out?
Yeah, I was so lucky. I mean, because I didn't train, I didn't go to drama school, and I always thought that I should and I needed to, and especially in England, it always felt like the absolute route that you must go. If you want to do theatre and stuff, you have to go to drama school. And I ended up being offered some work, and so just before I was meant to start at a drama school, LAMDA, I turned it down and did the plays instead. And I was really worried because I didn't know if I just was worried about not being officially trained. So actually, I really lent on actors that I worked with really early on in my career, and I just like tried to sort of absorb everything that I could from them. And like I worked with John Hurt really early on, who was so kind to me, and Harriet Walter played my mum in a play. Who else? I played Rachel McAdams' best friend in a Richard Curtis movie, and I remember there was one time where I was playing a small part in Anthony Hopkins was doing like a version of the Dresser, which is a play about an actor playing King Lear, and he was just so amazing. And I just sat in his dressing room between setups, and I just asked him a million questions about his process, and he was so kind. And I hope to always do that for people, because I really think that like collating everyone's like different process and how they work and how they lead a set, and The Pieces of a Woman was the first lead I'd done on screen, and I felt by that point really ready after 11 or 12 years of learning. And I often think that no one's route is the same. I wish I'd known that actually at the time, as when I first started, because I learned that from doing it. But I wish someone had said to me, like, your own lane is your own lane, and your timing is absolutely your timing. Like, I wasn't, some people like lead films at 22 and they're just incredible and so self-assured, and I just so wasn't ready to do that. And I don't know, what would you say? Do you ever compare to people?
Yes, and I feel like
Yeah.
that is really soul killing, because that's not really helping at all. And there's a lot of like pressure, because I'm in my mid-20s now, and it's this thing of like, oh, but so many people have done so much by this time and I'm still
I
here. And it's
know,
like,
it's so
what's
true.
the point? I mean, it's not really helping.
It's called, what's it called? Compare and despair. Yeah. What about you? What's the best bit of advice you've had?
I don't know. I just feel like I'm a very indecisive person, and I feel like the best piece of advice that I received was to just, try. I mean, you have to decide at some point, and it's better. There is this quote that I always, and that I don't remember perfectly, but that I always keep bringing up about more is lost by by indecision than wrong decision.
Yes.
And so that has really changed the way that I see things, especially as a producer. I really do need to make decisions whenever I'm finding a project or I'm putting together a project, and that really did help me a lot.
Totally. I mean, I know I know how that feels. I used to be so indecisive. It took me a really long time to make decisions about everything. I found it so hard because you don't want to get it wrong. But the thing is that what I learned is there is no wrong. The thing you choose is the right thing. It doesn't matter about the outcome. The outcome is meant to happen that way. Even if you think you then judge it as being something bad, it's not. It's just a huge learning thing. And you can't, what was that great quote? I've learned so much from my mistakes. I'm thinking about doing. Now I messed it up. Trying to be profound. Serves me right. What is it? What does it say? He said, I've learned so much. I've learned so much from my mistakes. I'm thinking about making a few more. That's it. And I love that. It's so true. And there's also that great Samuel Beckett quote, which is like, fail again, fail better, you know, which I also really like, because good and bad is just something that the narrative we judge in our head, but actually you literally learn more from what you perceive as being wrong than right. So there is no wrong, there's no such thing.
That's great. Talking about decisions then, what drew you to Pieces of a Woman? Because that feels like a very bold choice.
Yeah, I guess it was that in itself, really. I've been waiting, really waiting and really trusting that at some point something would come along on screen that demanded so much of me, and I'd really found them on stage, and I've been doing those. Like, there are some such incredible female parts for women on screen, you know, especially when you're not really established. And I've been waiting for The Crown was amazing, and it was a sort of real like ground zero for me, where a character really had a really like a really immense journey, you know, and it was just we were so happy on that job. It was so magical. And then, you know, I was looking for something that really moved me and that I could sort of go really deep into. And then, you know, when I read Pieces in an Hour, I was like, I guess, oh my God, it just got right inside me. And I just couldn't believe that couldn't think of a film in which there was that ambitious a birth on screen, and for that length, that really represented, you know, the whole journey of labor, which felt like, the more I thought about it, I thought, God, that's just the most universal female experience that there is, and has ever been. How strange that it hasn't been put on screen before, even really in a documentary.
But infant mortality is such a taboo subject still, like across the world. But when Pieces debuted on Netflix, it was the most watched film. Were you expecting such a great reception from the public?
Do you know what? Not really, no. I thought a lot about. I still don't. I don't know why. I think maybe because it is something that people, even unconsciously or subliminally, are watching, and they haven't really seen it before in some ways, you know. And I think that in itself is, I hope, a really good thing, because, you know, I couldn't believe, I learned really early on in the process of doing Pieces that 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. And so that's 25% of miscarriage, which means that's 25% of women that have got pregnant, and, you know, at different stages of pregnancy, which means that's a really huge number of us that go through it. And that should be something, therefore, if it's such a great number of the global population, it should be something that is openly spoken about and supported, and conversation around it, so you don't feel like you have to hide it or keep it to yourself. If you need help or support from even people in your close circle, you know, which is what the kind of movie explores, really. This is somebody who feels like she can't find a way out, you know, for a while, and that's completely her unique process. But I do think that with more conversation around it, there'd be more help. And you know, if this film does a tiny bit of moving towards that, I mean, literally couldn't ask for anything else.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's a great movie, and I feel like the grief that your character goes through, it's just so universal, because we've all experienced loss in one way or another. And I feel like the movie has really reached a lot of people, just because it's very easy to connect, even if you haven't gone through that experience. I remember watching it with my mother earlier this year, and we've really both connected a lot with your character, even if we're both in like very different stages of our life.
Thank you, that's so nice. I mean, and you're right about the grief thing. Like, I think sometimes when you come out of it, you forget what it's like, because just like my friends that have given birth, when I asked them about it, they said, like, oh, I can't remember it that well, you know, and sort of had a few flashbacks. But I think sometimes your brain protects you, you know, and it's sort of like only gives you little moments of it rather than the memory of being in it. So I felt really grateful that I sort of got to experience Martha's journey, because I feel like really connected to that space of grief. And if I hear someone in it, or like, I have so much more empathy for them, because it is such a lonely thing, you know.
What are you watching to stay sane these days as well? I mean, we've been locked for a year now, so it's not new anymore, but what are you watching?
Am I watching? Well, I've been watching all BAFTA films, which has been so wonderful to see. Like, oh, just especially when, you know, I'm sure you felt this, like this time last year when our whole industry shut down, cinemas were closed, and films weren't going, and we had no idea when they were going to go back. I just felt I watched so many films during that year, and I felt so much love for doing what we do and getting to do it. So now, like, next time on set, I'm just going to be like a kid in a sweet short type thing, you know, like running around just so pleased, because it's yeah, it made me like intensely grateful for it. So I don't know, I've been watching a whole mix of stuff. Who knows how long lockdown will continue? So if you recommend anything, let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been recommending Pieces of a Woman to everyone, but I don't need to recommend it to you. And I'm also not saying this because I'm talking to you, like, honestly, like, for real. So
Thank you so much. I'm so glad. Like, just the thought of women watching it and feeling like, I don't know, connected just just means everything. So thank you so much for saying that.